in prayer. Happy trials and temptation, he's in trouble anywhere. We should never be discouraged. Take it to the Lord in prayer. Can we find the Prince of Faithful? All our sorrows Jesus knows on every weakness. Take it to the Lord in prayer. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to continue that song by saying what a friend we had in Anthony. May his soul rest in peace. Your Grace, the Archbishop, the retired bishops of Church of Uganda, all the clergy, all mourners present. I'm not going to mention your various categories. I do observe the protocol. And in the interest of time, I want to be as brief as possible. Because if I'm to speak about Mbonye, I don't know how much time I'll. Many of you are here because you knew him. He touched your lives in various ways. He was a special person, as I have said. I think he was made from heaven, and God was right to take him back to heaven. I don't know how I can explain how he was, but he was made in a special way. Mbonye was somebody who was always happy. He was never sad. He was somebody who was always smart. He was somebody who kept time. He was somebody who liked only perfect things. He was somebody who was full of life, full of humor, full of everything. I can't describe him and end. But I know that all of you knew what Mbonye was. Me, I met Anthony when I was in my S6 long back, and he was also doing internship. He had finished Makerere University. He was doing internship at Mulago Hospital. That's when we met. And those are now 35 years. That was 1986. And I want to tell you here, and I'm not ashamed, that he's the only man I've known in my life, and he knows it. So I loved him so much, and he loved me so much, and I want to thank him that he has not disappointed me. He has lived to his promise until when God has taken him away from me. I want to talk about the life of Anthony Mbonye. Mbonye was born in this area. He was born in 1962. He studied here in this particular place. There is a private school here, which he has also been struggling to rebuild. They have a committee. They have been trying to put up some developments, teachers' houses. He has bought textbooks. He's so much concerned. He thought that he can pull back the school to the level it was then, because he thinks it was a poor school then in terms of structures, but a rich school in terms of performance. So that question has been disturbing him as to how he can revive Renkowa Primary School. And that's the journey he had started on. And I want to pledge that I want to continue that journey. I want to continue Mbonye's legacy. I I want to fill the posts that he held in those various. The post that he held on the committee for the development of the school, I request that I fill it. The post that he held on the development of the church, I request that I fill it, so that we continue to develop the area. And with that, I pledge that all the money that we have collected in the Mavugo, we are going to start a Mbonye Foundation. And that money will continue to do developmental work and to help those people that he has been helping in the area. So having finished Rwenkowa Primary School, he went to Chinyasano Secondary School, it is in Chigezi. Then he went to Ntale School, where he finished his A-level, and he went to Makerere University, and he did medicine. Mbonye was a very bright student. As I told you, he was exceptional. Those who went with him to medical school, you know him better. People used to have SAPs, what they call SAPs or supplementaries, but he never got a single one throughout his time in the medical school. He continued to other levels. He did degrees, he did postgraduate diplomas, he did PhDs. The line is endless. But when I settle down, I'm going to write his life, his qualifications. He won so many awards. He totaled to millions of US dollars. I'm going to publish all that so that all Ugandans can see the kind of man they have lost in Mbonye. His work after finishing Makerere, his first assignment was in the Department of Pharmacology. He worked as a teaching assistant in pharmacology. Then from there, he joined the Ministry of Health, where he worked until when he left government. There are a number of issues that surrounded his departure. Most of you know about them. And as I talked the other day, I said I'm not going to repeat that, because he told me before he died that he has forgiven whoever wronged him. That is something that puzzled him for a long time, or pained him for a long time. But I think with time, he has let it go. And it's good that he has gone when his heart is at ease and is at peace. And I want to say or think that the disease that he suffered from most likely came from the stress that he got in his last days in the ministry. Because Mbonye left the ministry when he was already sick. He started feeling pressure, feeling ulcer, and the ulcers turned into belching. He was belching, and it was at the middle of the struggle. I was even telling him, why don't we go to Nairobi and check? But he kept on because he wanted to be there. He wanted, you know, when you are fighting, you don't want to leave. You want to be there so that you defend yourself every day. And maybe that delaying of wanting to be there and present himself every day could have led to the loss of his life eventually. But eventually, He went for the check, went to Nairobi, they checked him, and they said there was something in the stomach. And that something was malignant. So we went to India, they operated him, and they actually cut half of the stomach and left him with half. We came back, they prescribed chemotherapy for him. They said just to be sure, because they got the cancer before it could spread to other parts. So he said we could be lucky. That was in 2017, because it was operated on 1st of December 2017. And when he came back, as he was recuperating, getting better amidst those wars in their ministry, I told him, why don't you resign? Why don't you leave that job? He did it grudgingly, because for him he wanted to fight up to the end. But eventually he listened to me. He resigned that job. We stayed home. We treated him. He finished the chemotherapy, which he had described for 6 months. He went back to India. They checked. They said there was no cancer. So we felt happy. And thereafter I kept going back to India every 6 months for review. And every review they would say all was okay. Not until the COVID pandemic. When the COVID came, he was supposed to have gone for a check in February 2020. So he said, since you're already somebody in a risky group, don't risk flying in the planes or the airports. You may contract COVID. Said, yeah, after all, pandemics don't last long. They last about 3 months and they pass. Then I'll go for a checkup later. So he missed that checkup of February. And I think by that time, probably something had come back, because they say cancer normally remits. And for him as a medical person, when he got that first one, he kept on telling us that, you know, once you have cancer, it will always come back. Not until after 5 years have passed, then you can be cleared. So he was still in that window where anything could happen to him. And I think there was something inside, but which could not be detected, because here in Uganda, you know very well that we don't have a PET scan for such things. So he was okay and he went about his life. Not until around June that he started feeling funny in the stomach. Started feeling it full. Like every time he would sit, he would feel like there's something pressing on his bladder. So he consulted his fellow doctors and they told him, you go for a CT scan. He did a scan here and they said the abdomen had ascites. Ascites is water in the abdomen. So they said we need to check that water to see what is in that water. So they did a check of that water and they found that actually the water had cancer cells. So now we said, what do we do? We are still in a lockdown. Uganda had not yet opened the airports. So I talked to the president. The president helped us. They got us a charter that took us to Addis. He went with our daughter Sma. Then at least they got the commercial flight because the airport was open. So they went to Israel. That was on the recommendation of Dr. Kuku. Got us the recommendation there. Then we also had friends here, the Israelites. I don't know whether they could have come here or they are not here. And Mr. Barak and Mr. Gil. They got us a professor in Israel who was an expert in cancer. So doctor went there. But the problem is that also Israel was under lockdown. So, but we went in because of that, both from government and from the Israel friends. I think we are highly pressed in government. They allowed them in, put them under quarantine for 14 days, and then they were able to see the professor there, Professor Ido, who I think assisted and gave them the necessary drugs. They brought the drugs home, and those drugs were administered. Dr. Kuku here is the one that used to admit. Dr. Kuku, can you stand up for recognition? Is the one. Who used to administer this, and he also has a pharmacist called Deo. Is Deo around? So they used to. Oh, thank you, Deo. So they used to come home. They have been coming home. And they would administer to Professor. They struggled with that vomiting because it could never, I don't know, whatever drug, whatever vomiting drug they could give, it would look like they haven't given. And I don't know if any one of you has ever suffered from vomiting, or at least the biggest number of us have ever suffered from vomiting. Imagine yourself vomiting every day of your life. Every other hour. Even when it is at night, you would wake up to vomit. So they changed the drug, gave him another drug, and we went on like that, but still the vomiting continued, but a bit regulated. Of course, he couldn't eat. So we said, now let's look for the last opinion. Because himself, he felt he was tired. We actually forced him to go to Germany. He didn't want to go. He was saying no. I think the time has come. Don't give up. The Germans can do a miracle for us. We convinced him. We went to Germany. We spent a month. We went to Heidelberg, their popular Institute of Cancer. We met Professor Yeager, who is the head of the department. They did whatever they could do, investigated, and they gave us. So we continued. We actually, from Germany, we came when the vomiting was completely stopped. There was no vomiting. And Professor came saying that now when I go home, I'm going to eat. Because he wasn't eating yet. He had stopped eating long ago. So he could maintain his life on a Cabivain, some Nutri-Pack. You are fed through the bloodstream. They feed you straight. So he said, now when I go to Uganda, this time I'm going to eat. So we welcomed that, we felt happy. We came back. When we came back, actually that night we reached like around 3 a.m. And we gave him some little food after so many months. Gave him some mashed matoke and soup, and he ate it. Following day, we gave him still some little food, he ate it. So he ate food like about a week, but a little. But I think the stomach had been designed not to eat food. But we kept on, we as people looking after him, we kept on forcing him to eat a little. And of course he would take it. Sometimes he would say, I'm eating to please you, but I don't want to eat. My stomach is not digesting. And we even sometimes used to blame Dr. Kuku, because Dr. Kuku would side with the patient. The stomach is not. And then for us here, we would feel like we are disappointed. Would say, "Hey, Daddy, you can eat a little." So you would eat a little like that. But things continue to deteriorate. Now, on top of the vomiting, setting diarrhea. He had very, very bad diarrhea. Those of you who have ever gone for an endoscopy or a colonoscopy, I don't know whether anyone has ever gone for that. They tend to give you a substance which they give you which makes you a laxative, which makes you diarrhea, everything you have in your stomach before you go for that endoscopy or colonoscopy. And that diarrhea is like water, like you are susuling. Now, Professor had that kind of diarrhea, like you are susuling too much. And if there is anything that I think took away his life, is that kind of thing. You are vomiting, you are diarrheaing, and these things, the doctors were giving drugs, but the disease was not responding to those drugs. They gave him both intravenous, tablets, but the disease was saying, "No, I'm here to take you." And indeed, the disease took doctor. So, in his last days, the days came so fast. And up to now, we are asking ourselves, when we go back, we ask ourselves, what is it that we didn't do? What is it that we failed to see in time? Because it started deteriorating. Let me say on Tuesday. He was supposed to have got his chemotherapy on Saturday. When Dr. Kuku came, he said, the patient is weak. Let's postpone the chemotherapy to Tuesday. Monday, they even infused him with blood because Dr. Kuku had said his blood was low. Hemoglobin was low. So they gave him blood on Monday. We went to bed. Tuesday morning we woke up, he was feeling weak. And he had been, I don't want to say he was strong, but on Tuesday morning, he looked a bit weaker. So, as I took him to bathe, I realized like he was bending on one side like this, and I was saying, "No, you stand upright. You are going to hurt yourself on this side." So I actually gave him, we were giving porridge in the morning. I gave him porridge in the morning and said, "I can't hold that cup. You feed me." So I feed him. He finishes the porridge. And then I say, "Okay, let me take you to the treatment room." I took him to the treatment room, waiting for Dr. Kuku to come and administer. I even asked him, "Dad, are you ready for the chemo today?" He said, "Yes, I'm ready." So Mosei had sent me to go and meet the Prime Minister that morning. So I tell him, let me go and meet the Prime Minister, and I rush back. So I went to meet the Prime Minister in the morning, then I rushed back. So on my way back, Sma calls me and tells me, "Mommy, Dr. Cook is here and they want to take Daddy for X-ray. He's not feeling well." I say, "How?" "Let me come, let them wait." And I was on my way, so in a few minutes I reach, and Dr. Kuku tells me that I think the patient is not doing well. He was complaining of a ball in the chest. Said he was feeling a ball in the chest, and we thought it was maybe a wound due to excessive vomiting. So they took him to the We go to Kampala Imaging Center. They check him, they do the x-ray and the ultrasound, and then they tell us that he had a lymph node in the chest, which was leaning on the, said was leaning on the trachea. So they recommend for a CT scan. And then Dr. Cook says, no, the patient is very weak. We can't do the CT scan now. We shall come back another day. So we lift him, put him back in the car, and we go back home. So Dr. Cook tells us that they found whatever little he has been eating was seated in the stomach. The stomach was not digesting it, and therefore was busy fermenting there and rotting there. So Dr. Cook said, I must do a lavage. Whatever he had put a tube inside, through the nose, suck out whatever is in the stomach, then wash it, and then he said after that, he will feel relief, and he may even be able to digest something. So they came to glucose. If it doesn't come, that means the stomach is digesting. And that's what the nurse did after 30 minutes. Checked, and actually the glucose was in there. So we thought the stomach was going to digest. But after that, he didn't become better. The condition worsened. And now the mouth started dripping like this, and the speech had become, I don't know what to say, he would talk and he wouldn't hear properly what he's talking about, to say pardon, pardon. Like when somebody has got a stroke, actually slept there, we thought we shouldn't disturb him. The following day, that was Wednesday, Dr. Cook came in the evening, check on the patient, and the patient had not improved. He was actually now breathing funny. He was breathing like he had something seated in his throat. So, Dr. Cook said, now he said, let's go out and talk. So I went with him. He said, I think Professor is coming towards his last days. You now need to make a decision. Do you want us to continue treating him from home, because I can, or do you want us to take him for admission in the hospital? I said let him take for admission. So Dr. called Nakasero, booked for admission. And we immediately went to hospital. They admitted him, put him on those machines of theirs. So the following day, they still put me on the side. And they told me that it seems Professor is coming to the end of the journey. I said, no, we can do something. Let us do something. I don't think the end has come. So they said we shall try and do whatever we can. But I think for them they knew, or they left me and they went. So Friday again, and they came for the ward round. Listened to his chest and they told me, Professor has a wet chest. I said, what do you mean by wet chest? He told me that because he's too weak, now the lungs are getting full of water. I said, how? Now for me, I was thinking that was improving. Because when we went to hospital, he had a funny noise that was making on the throat, like rattling. Dr. Kuku called it rattling. And he told me, and Dr. Kuku told me that, rattling, something made when people are coming towards the end of their life. Now when it stopped, for us we said, Dr. Kuku doesn't know things. Professor is going to leave. And actually I had refused him to put a tube in his nose to try and feed him, because he had told me he's coming to the end of his life. So I told him, if he's coming to the end of his life, why bother him with a thing in the nose? He's already not feeling well. Let him die in peace. I don't want that thing in the nose. So because he had stopped that rattling, now when Dr. came on Friday, I said, now in fact, Doctor, you put that thing in the nose so that we can feed him, he gets energy and is able to move and fight that water in the lungs. Dr. said, yes, we are going to do as you wish, we shall put, so that we can feed him. That same day, Dr. Kia came. I told him, Doctor, my patient is improving. The breathing badly has stopped. He's now breathing well. So I think we are on the road to recovery. He also took me to the side. Said, you come. Took me into another room. And told me, madam, when somebody is making that noise, in fact it's good. Because it means that person is fighting to open those chambers. He's using some energy to open the chambers. As they close, it opens so that it breathes. So when the person stops making that noise, it means he has lost the energy to keep them open. And therefore water is taking advantage and filling those sacs and is now will be laboring more to breathe. So he also told me the same thing as the doctor was telling me, that the time has come. So I still said, if it has come, we can elongate it. Can't we remove that water in the lungs? Dr. Kuku said, yes, we can. But the problem is that if we give him Lasix, the pressure is going to, he said it was going to fall, then the kidneys are going to dry, so you are going to get heart failure, at the same time you get kidney failure, so it's a balance. Said, let's do that balance. Let's give him what you think. Said, okay. He prescribed, I think, 20 mils of Lasix. So they gave him the 20. They first gave him the 10 as they monitor the pressure. The pressure, good enough, didn't go down. Became so anxious, you didn't even want to go to Susu, you didn't want to go anywhere because we were thinking, the hours come, but actually the hour wasn't coming. Because we spent the whole of Saturday We entered the night, stayed around up to around the midnight. I told these children, you know, you go back. Let me stay with the one. The rest of you go back. I think that will make it up to morning. And being in hospital, they had taught us how to see, to look out for the bad sign. And they had given us a number to look for, 65. Where there is pressure, they say, don't worry about the pressure, even if it goes down, but look at that number below in bracket. When it comes to 65 and falls below 65, that's when you would worry. Now, as Dr. Wu was telling us the hours left, that number was in 80s. So we said, let's leave Dr. Kuku, he's biased. Daddy is going to leave. But now in the night, I dozed off a bit. Sma was awake, and also my sister. So when I woke up and I looked at the monitor was saying 60. I got up. I called Sma. Sma, have you not been looking at that number? He said, I've been looking at it, but I didn't want to scare you, Mommy. So I said, no. Let's call the doctors. The number is 60, which is already 5 less than what we are supposed to watch out for. So we told the nurse. The nurse said, we don't need to call the doctor now. I'm supposed to monitor that situation for 30 minutes because it keeps going back, coming down, going back. Then I'll call the doctor when it is really necessary. So that number kept on playing around 60, 58, 54, 56, then it would go back. Eventually it went to 45, 41. Said actually, Doc is going to die. We now dressed up and even packed our things. We said, now, I think Doc is going to die. These people have been right. Packed our things and we said, now let's wait and see. But you know, all along he had stopped talking. He wasn't talking. He had stopped talking, I think, on Thursday. He stopped talking on Thursday. Wednesday he was talking a bit because he would say no. If he didn't want something, he would say like no, a word. But this is when he stopped talking, and even now he had closed his eyes. He was no longer seeing what was going on. So we called the doctor. The doctor came in, checked the patient and said, still put me on the side. And he told me that Professor is approaching his last hours. Professor's life is coming to an end, unfortunately. And he went away and left us there to keep looking. I actually called my driver to bring back the children to hospital so that they see their dad for the last time. So the driver brought them. So we kept watching as the numbers fell. And now the breathing was smaller. He would breathe and stops for some minutes. Then they said that was gasping. He would breathe, stop for some time, then breathe again, stop for some time, breathe again. And they said that finally he would just sink into sleep. So we waited until the last time. Actually, when he was dying, for him, I think he made that real deep breath. And said, I think that was the life of Professor. So Professor went away, but Professor, as you have said, is in a better place. Professor must be in heaven. He did only good things. I don't remember him ever having done anything that is bad. And if there is anybody he wronged, I want to say that he should be forgiven. I want to ask for that forgiveness from anybody he wronged and he wasn't able to apologize. I believe he's in a better place, and I believe he has rested because he went through a nightmare of a disease called cancer. And as Dr. Kaziwe was saying, if you have an ulcer, please check that ulcer, because that ulcer could be the one that can send you to your grave. For all that time that Professor has been sick, I think he felt so bad, and he kept on complaining to God. He said, God, why are you doing this to me? I've just retired, and I've retired into sickness. I haven't retired like other people, and you have given me disease that bothers me every day. I don't see any improvement. And I sometimes even ask God, why don't you take me now? Why don't you take me now? And you don't make me suffer like this. Even you say that if there was a switch, I would switch off that switch so that I go to rest. And God decided to switch off that switch for him. So I think he's resting. And that's why today we are saying we are mourning because we have lost him. But we are also celebrating because he has lived a good life. Those who knew him, he lived a good life. He liked all the good things. He did them for himself. He did them for us. And we have no regret. We can never find another professor. And he hasn't left us badly. He has left us well. And I believe we shall continue to enjoy whatever little he has left. And we shall continue to help, because he told us continue that path of helping people. And we shall continue to help people. Professor, professionally, has written many books, has written many papers. You can Google him, you can read those things of his, and if I get time, I'll publish them. I now want to thank. My first thanks will go to Dr. Okuku, and the professor, the one of Cancer Institute, your colleague. Thank you for being there for Daddy. I know you are busy, you have so many patients, but you never missed a day that he was supposed to get chemo. Every time we consulted you, you gave us the advice. We had the drugs. Then we had two nurses, one called Pamela and another one called Betty. One was working during the day, another one was working at night. I don't know whether they managed to come. They were also wonderful girls. They helped us a lot. Thank you very much. You will forever remain part of our family, and we shall forever grateful. There was Dale, the pharmacist, who used to come with Dr. Kuku to mix the drugs. Dale, thank you very much. There is a driver that doctor came with from Ministry of Health called Sovia. That driver has been there for Daddy, and Daddy told me that even when he dies, he should remain a family driver, so don't think you have lost a job. We shall continue to employ you until when you no longer want to work with us. Then I stand up for recognition. That she has been here. Even Daddy, when Daddy was very sick on the deathbed, Daddy helped her to proofread. She wrote her things. Daddy helped her in those lockdown of Israel. As they were in the lockdown, Daddy was busy proofreading for her. Daddy was so committed that even when he was in Dubai on vomiting, he had a dissertation of some South African student. And I told him, "Look, why don't you leave those things alone?" He said, "No. These people interested me. I must read a book which was as thick as I don't know, like this." And he was busy reading it. Every time he would not be vomiting, says that to me, "The university has interested me to do this." And he would read. "Daddy, I don't know what sort of thing he was made of." Now he said, "I'm writing all the lecture notes." He was writing those lecture notes when he was sick. He said, "No, I must pass over this knowledge. Do you want me to die with it?" So he has published so many books, and he has got the money, published them, and he said, "Now your job is to make sure you give those books for free for lecture notes." He had actually started distributing them to the universities. There are some which are still home, and I will continue to distribute them to universities. And he said those books are for free for students to learn from him when he's gone. But he said he was happy. He has no regret because he thinks God gave him a warning. Because for him, from 2017, he started working towards his death. He kept on telling me, cancer has to get remissions, that there will be remission, that there will be remission. So he worked day and night like tomorrow was not going to come. And indeed, by the time he died, he was telling me, "You know, now I've finished everything I feel like I should have done. So even if God takes me now, I have no problem." And he kept on telling me, prepare, because I'm about to die. Prepare because the time has come." And we used to tell him no. And he would tell us that thing many times. And for us, we used to say, "Daddy, you should be positive." For us, we used to think that that is being negative. But I think for him, he knew inside how he was feeling. So Daddy has gone to rest. Let him rest in peace. I want to thank all of you for coming. These are COVID times. For somebody to come all the way from Kampala when vehicles can't move. That's what they said. People don't come for justice. Somebody will say that they come for justice. People don't come for just, but this is coming for real. You have shown us your love, and it is that love that will make us remain strong, and we shall carry on. So, don't we are saying maybe you are the one who will be strong because you are going there and you are leaving everything here. But for us, we'll continue to see where you are sleeping, where you have been sitting, what you have been talking. That strength will take time. It will really take us time. It's not going to be now. But we promise that one day we shall achieve it, but not now. So when you see me break down, let me cry. I will keep crying. I will not feel it because I'm head civil service. Head civil service has nothing to do with losing a friend. Mbonye was my best friend. I will tell him any problem that I have in my life. And I was actually saying that, thank God they removed me from the job of the State House Controller. It was so stressful. It had a lot of challenges. And I always shared those challenges with Professor and would tell me, you ignore those things. This one is doing this, one is saying this one is saying this. And I would call home and I tell him, look, they have said this, they have done this. And he would say, you ignore. Now I was saying, supposing I was still State House Controller, who was I going to tell? Because these children are too young, I can't come and tell him the funny things of this world. So, I think everything has a plan. God has a plan for everything. I want to thank you, Archbishop. Thank you for gracing this occasion. You have made the doctor very proud. Doctor is somebody who liked high things, those who knew him. For him, he always wanted the best of the best. I think he's very happy to see that the bishop has come. That is what he exactly wanted. Because for him, he always aimed for the highest in his life. And actually, he has achieved the highest. And I want to thank these children for being there. Because he always said that you boys, you are shy, and when I die, you're not going to talk. Yet me, your father, I talk. And they always told him, no, Daddy, we shall talk. And he said, no. The only person I trust will talk is, thank you that you have managed to stand here and talked. So Daddy, you have seen. what you have been worrying should not worry you anymore. I think everybody is going to leave your legacy. I want to thank you, because if I talk about doctor, I think I'm not going to end. There are so many things.
Yes, defense, or Rosette, million